Hey guys, welcome to the next video on Python thread tutorial for beginners. In the last video, we have seen how to use thread module in Python. Now in this video, I'm going to show you how to use threading module in Python, and I'm going to give you some introduction about threading module, how to create threads using threading modules, and how to use threading module. Now threading module is more powerful and it has more higher level support for creating threads in Python. So let's see how to use threading module in Python. So in order to use threading module, first of all we need to import it. So I'm going to just import threading module, and once threading module is imported, we will be able to use threading module. The second module which I'm going to import here is the time module, which we have also seen in the last video, because we are going to create the same function and we are going to use this function using the threading module which we have seen in the last video. Now I'm going to create the same method which I have created in the last video also, which is print epoch. So I'm going to just copy this method in order to save time, and then I'm going to just paste it here. So now we have our function which we want to call using the threading module, and we want to create some threads using this threading module and call this function inside those threads. So first of all, I'm going to write this condition which is for the main method, which is if name is equal to underscore underscore main underscore underscore. And under this condition, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create two variables. Let's say first variable name is t1 for thread 1, and then I'm going to call the threading module to create a thread. Now inside this threading module there is a class called thread which we will use to create threads. So just call thread class here, and constructor of this class takes several arguments. When you hover over here inside the parenthesis, you will see the signature of this thread class. So it can take the target, it can take the name of the thread, and arguments also it can take in the form of tuple, and it can also take the keyword argument in the form of dictionary. So for our purpose, we need to call the function which is print epoch. So we need to provide a target. So in order to provide the target, we are going to just write target equals and the name of the function. So the name of the function is print epoch, which we are going to call, and this you need to give without the parenthesis. So just remove the parenthesis in front of this method when you use it as the argument in front of target. The second argument which we want to give here is the arguments which this function takes. So this argument we can give using the args parameter. So I'm going to just write args equals, and then in the form of tuple I'm going to give the name of the thread and the delay to the thread. So let's give the name to the thread. Let's say this is thread 1, and the delay which we want to give here is 1. So this statement is going to create one thread, and let me create one more thread in order to create multiple threads. And instead of t1, I'm going to change the name to t2. So we have t1 variable and t2 variable, and in the args I'm going to change the name of the thread which is thread 2, and let's say I want to give this delay of 2 seconds to the function using the thread 2. So now we have two variables t1 and t2, which is an instance of the thread class. Now using t1 and t2, we can call a method called start in order to start the thread. So I'm going to just call t1 variable and then call a method called start, which is going to start the thread t1. Similarly, I'm going to call the instance t2, and I'm going to call the method start on this instance t2 also. So start method we use to start the threads. Now if you remember in the last video, when we have created the thread using the thread module, we have given this condition which is the infinite loop, and this infinite loop we have used to wait until the execution of thread is completed. Now in the threading module, which is the new module, this facility is available using a method called join. So on T1 instance, I can call a method called join, and on T2 instance also I can call a method called join, and this join method waits until thread 1 and thread 2 is completed its execution. And then at the end we can print something. Let's say we are going to print that everything is done, so I'm going to print done here. So let's rewind what we have done inside this script. We have imported threading module and time module, and then we have created the function which we want to call using the threads. Now in order to create the thread using threading module, we need to call the class called thread inside the threading module. Now this class constructor takes several arguments, and right now we have given two arguments to this thread constructor, which is the target, which takes the name of the function which we want to execute using this thread, and second argument we have given here is the args, which is the argument which we want to give to the function which we want to execute. Same we have done for the thread 2 also. Now the start method on these instances is going to start the thread for T1 and T2, and the join method we have used to wait until thread 1 and thread 2 is completed their execution. So let's run this script and let's see what happens. So I'm going to right click and then run the threading example Python script, and you can see straight away that this output is printed here. Similar output we have seen in the case of thread module also. So in this output, thread 1 is printed and the epoch time is printed, and then thread 2 is printed, which is printed using the thread 2. So this output is printed using the thread 1, and thread 2 output is printed using the thread 2. And because we have given different intervals for thread 1 and thread 2, that's why we can see that thread 1 is printed and then thread 2, and then thread 1 is printed 2 times, and then thread 2 is printed, and then thread 1 is printed once again 2 times, and then rest of the thread 2 outputs are printed. Now let's take one more example, and what we are going to do in this example is we are going to create two different functions, and we are going to try to call these two functions using these two threads. So the first function I'm going to create here is the print underscore cube, which is going to print the value of cube of the number which we will provide as the argument to this function. So I'm going to just write print here, and then using this print statement I'm going to print the value of cube of the number. So here I'm going to just write cube, and then I'm going to provide these curly brackets, and then I'm going to call the format method after this string. So let's call the format method which we use in order to format a string. Now inside this string we want the cube of the number, so we will just multiply this number 3 times. So num asterisk num asterisk num, which is going to print the cube of the number. Once again, let me just copy this function, and then I'm going to create one more function, and this time I'm going to name my function as print square. So I'm going to just write print square here, and then I'm going to just write square is equal to, and here I'm going to just print the square of the number. Now in this statement where we have created T1 and T2 instances, the target we can change, which is the name of the function. So now our target is print cube and print square. Without the parentheses, we need to give the name of these function. So print cube and print square, and arguments have also changed. So earlier print epoch used to take 2 arguments, and now we just want to give 1 argument to the function, and let's say it's 2. And also the print cube function takes 1 argument, and let's say it's 2 also. Now let's run this script and let's see what happens. So you will see that there is an exception here, which is some kind of a weird exception which says that exception in thread 2, and this exception is this print square argument after asterisk must be iteratable, right? So the problem here is we need to give a comma here which tells this parenthesis that this is a tuple value. Okay, that's why it's giving the exception. So if your function takes one argument, then you need to give the value of that argument and then give the comma so that it's able to understand that it's a tuple. And then once again, when you run this script, you will see the value of cube is printed, which is 8, and square is printed, which is 4. So this cube value is printed using thread 1 and square value is printed using the thread 2. So in this way, you can also call multiple function using multiple thread instances using threading module. So this was a brief introduction about threading module. There is much more to learn about threading module, which we will learn in the future videos. So stay tuned and please keep watching these videos, and I will see you in the next video.